President Duterte urged to reconsider his plan to terminate the visiting forces agreement with the U.S. amid concerns that it could impact national security. And to start the week off, we have with us Senator Richard Gordon. He is the chairman of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee. Senator Gordon, thank you so much for starting the week with Headstart.
We're not supposed to shake hands.
Thank you, but thank you for coming.
I'm always happy to do so.
All right, the president has recently issued a statement saying no more review. I'm canceling the VFA. You have Malacanang saying the cabinet is in unison when it comes to the policies. What is the effect? What can happen if the VFA is canceled?
Well, first of all, there are discordant noises coming out of Malacanang. Sometimes I think that you cannot, if you're mad at the United States, don't cut your nose to spite your face. And that leads me to your question. Obviously, the president has control of foreign policy. But in this particular instance, it's a weird situation because we have a constitutional provision that says, kabilang yan, the Senate can review all treaties, subject to ratification by the Senate. No? And because of that, in this vital issue of defense, right, that we have some altercations with China, even if the president is leaning towards China, the public has the right to know. Our citizens have a right to know, especially since this is a very pro-U.S. country. We have over 4 million, 5 million Filipinos in the United States. And therefore, there are concerns about the Chinese. No, they're not very popular here. And you have a military that keeps promising, and all governments have promised, we will improve the military. And yet, it is the sick man of Asia in terms of military prowess. Even our manpower is lower than most. Our expenditures is lower than most. And certainly, we have a budget of 197 billion pesos for the military. 119 of that will go just to payment of salaries. So ano pa natira? And then we've been promising modernization. Well, in the meantime, a small country like Singapore has 6 or 8 submarines. We don't have a single one. All their C-130s are working. They have 4 jets of F-35 either an order has arrived. F-35 is really the most top of the line. We used to have that situation when we had our F-5s and our F-86. We even sent them to the Congo before. We had the Blue Diamonds. But now, our Air Force I'm not disparaging Korea. We have a capability, but it's something that we would have to really risk the lives of our Air Forces.
What can we lose if the VFA is canceled?
Well, put it this way. Certainly, I'm not looking at it from a cash register's point of view. No? Certainly, a lot of training. Our helicopter pilots can now fly at night. That came out of VFA. They have trained that. At night, you can fly. We now use drones. That's part of the training. We have balikatan, ground to air, air to ground, and ship to air, etc. And many of these things, plus the fact that if there is a disaster, like in Haiyan, the Americans were here. Of course, other countries were here. No? And at the same time, we have to really have interoperability. Most of the equipment are American. That's going to be hard to switch there. It's not. It isn't simply done. No?
Now, the VFA gives relevance to the Mutual Defense Treaty.
Yes.
What will happen to the Mutual Defense Treaty if the VFA is canceled?
It becomes a piece of paper because the VFA allows Americans to come in here by treaty. They're allowed to train with us. They're allowed to stay in our facilities. They build facilities that they will leave behind. I'm not after that. May makukuha tayo sa kanila. I'm after training. I'm after, these are our long-term allies, and we have a problem. Supposing alisin mo yan, VFA, and supposing right now we have troops in Ayungin Shores, no? At biglang pumasok yung China dyan, alis na kayo dyan. Sino tatakbo natin, no? It's easy to say, kaya natin yan. In the case of the Spratly or the Scarborough Shoals, that was a miscommunication on the part of the country with the United States and also with China. Sabi ng America, lumatras kayo dyan, atras yan. Ba't tayo naniwala? That's where national interest comes in. The proper thing to have done there is, we're not going to leave. You leave first because this is our territory. I don't care if the Americans are saying that. America will not fight for us because we are not ready to fight for ourselves. And that is basically the problem. And America is a slow-footed country. They have to deal with their Congress. Remember World War I, World War II? It took them several years before they succored two World War II allies in Europe and in Japan. They had to be attacked by the Japanese. So matagal gumalaw yan.
No.
And even then, they took their time here in Asia. They conquered Europe first.
Okay, Congressman Joey Salceda last week or a few weeks back said he's always been against military presence, and he said compared to other allies, the U.S. doesn't give enough or do enough for the Philippines. Do you agree with that?
I don't agree with it because I don't deal with the United States as if we are in penury. I don't agree with that. I mean, there was a dignity in that, no? They will respect us more if we show, oh, si Joey naman, magaling sa pera yan. Di magdagdag tayo ng budget sa kan. We have to put our money where our mouth is. Let's buy the jets and we'll have to sacrifice in some other areas. Because that is a very primordial function of the government to protect and defend the state. In fact, they can even get a draft from Filipinos, no? Pero we have to put our money where our mouth is. Now, if we keep asking for money, they look down on us. Now, that's not true. Our allies, Japan, pays for the bases in Japan. They pay for the upkeep of American bases until now. And they rely on the American umbrella. Why? Because Japan says, if the Chinese or the North Koreans invade North Korea, and now they have missiles, they look at the intention, they don't look at the intention, they look at the capacity. So kung may capacity dyan, kailangan may kasama tayo. Pero kita mo, ang Japan, nagbubungguan sila. They keep in Senkaku.
That's a different point of view. It's interesting you said that because it's a change in the mindset that look at Japan, essentially first world, and they're even paying to keep the bases
You know,
there.
when I first went to Japan, they had bases in Japan. There were nightclubs outside the bases. When I got back to those bases, there were no more nightclubs. The nightclubs were inside the Americas just for their own entertainment. It was the Japanese women that were now taking care of the Americans. They became
Okay,
boyfriends
but
and
let's
girlfriends.
not go there.
No, I'm just putting that because it became a first world country. It helped itself. The policy of Japan has always been, and even for China, even for other countries, and it should be ours, enrich the country, strengthen the military. You cannot strengthen the military for so long as we don't enrich the country.
And what role do the allies play? That's the important. What happens essentially, Jose Cuisha said, if the VFA is terminated, under that you have counterintelligence support, you also have military training support, counter-terrorism support. What happens? Will that all go?
Well, that will be diminished, and I don't think we have enough intelligence funds to take care of that. Remember, they were there for us in Marawi. They will not admit it. Abu Sayyaf is in a little corner of the world. They're not openly doing that because they might provoke an attack on the U.S. and that's how they feel.
Yeah.
But the point is, we should think of ourselves first.
Yeah.
For the Americans, a slight like a visa rejection, that's nothing. Senator Bato, in all fairness, can always go to the United States with President Duterte or in an official mission. I bet you they'll be given a visa. Hindi nga lang siya pwedeng basta pupunta lang doon. I think he would have to apply each time. That means that's what the cancellation of a visa means. I would like to apply. Ngayon, kung dinenay siya, the Iranian foreign minister was denied when he was going to the UN. Hindi siya nakapasok because binomba nila yung kuwan. So that's the point. The point is, always look at ourselves first. What are we fighting for? Who's gonna fight for us? Nobody's gonna fight for you. Parang barkado yan eh. Diba? May kaibigan kami. Sinuntok yung kaibigan ko. Hindi naman lumalaban. Hindi ako lalaban. Pero pagka nakita ko sinuntok na yung kaibigan ko, tutulungan ko na yan.
Okay, I don't mean to interrupt, but to focus on it. So the Visiting Forces Agreement was ratified by the Senate in 1990. Can President Duterte unilaterally just cancel it? This is the big question because when you speak to a cabinet official, they'll say it's clear. The President has the power to cancel it.
Well,
what do you think?
I'm not going to go on a fool's errand. No?
Yeah.
Meaning to say, I submit to the power of the President to enter into an agreement and have that agreement ratified. That is in the Constitution. But on a matter as important, in fact, Senator Dillon filed a bill about a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, na all agreements from here on must be concurred in if we abrogate. Now, especially on this matter, no, where the national security is concerned, dapat at least at the very least, the Senate must express its position to the President. Mr. President, we ratified this agreement.
Yeah.
We debated it. Now you're removing it. We want to know why you're removing it.
Yeah.
What are we going to do?
But
what are we going to do about our military? What are we going to do?
You all have. Clearly, you've been very vocal about it. And then a resolution was signed by Senate President Tito Soto, Drilon, and Lacson too. But just between us, do you really have the power? I mean, in terms of the cancellation of the VFA, or it solely rests on the president
Well,
at
the president
this point?
has a very, and I'm willing to concede that he has the advantage. But you know, if you can ratify, you can abrogate. You can get your ratification to abrogate as well, no? But especially on a matter as important as this. That is what was ruled in Goldwater versus Carter. When Carter canceled the recognition of Taiwan, Goldwater went to the Supreme Court and they said that's a political question. Yun ang cap-out ng Supreme Court, which is fair. But on the other hand, one Supreme Court justice said, "Teka muna, it may be political, but if the Senate wants to object, the Senate has the right to come out with a resolution saying, we want to object and we will discuss it." Sa akin, whether or not he cancels, we have to discuss it. We have to educate our people so they know what's going on. It's like SARS. May darating na SARS o coronavirus, we have to
But
be
then
vigilant.
you did mention that in the past, Senator Drilon filed a resolution that from here on, treaties, if abrogated, must have Senate concurrence.
That's right.
What's happened to that?
It's perspective.
That's it, yeah. So
Perspective, not
what's
in the
happened to
future.
that?
Well, I'm waiting for him because lawyer rin naman pareho kami nanggaling sa Accra. No? So he should be able to do that. But as far as I'm concerned, ang position ko, bawa ko kay Presidente, not because he's the incumbent almighty, but because what kind of a president will you have if he has to be held hostage by the Senate in ratification? Or for that matter, the Constitution is very clear. In terms of war making, the President has to go through the Senate. In terms of a treaty, you have to go to the Senate. Yung nga doon sa una, both houses pa eh. But here, Senate lang ito eh. So if you withdraw it, or for that matter, you withdraw a treaty that was ratified by the Senate should speak up as representatives of the people to find out what is the reason, what is the raison d'etat for this.
Okay. But then the president gave 30 days. I remember the threat was 30 days for Senator Bato's visa to be reinstated, and the U.S. didn't respond in any way.
I don't think it's just Bato.
Okay.
I don't think it's just Bato. I mean, there is a long history na nung pang there was an American who was making bombs and he blew himself up and he was whisked away by the embassy. And I think there were some altercations when the president went, when he was still a mayor in America.
Yeah.
So, you know, but when you're a president, you cannot look back at that. You have to look at what is the interest of the country. And ang ayoko lang dito, I don't want to pivot to China. I will play China. I will play the United States. I am not pro-American. I'm not pro-China. I will play it. And my only consideration is, anong kabutihan nito sa Pilipinas? That's all. What is the good thing that we will get out of this?
Will, other than the resolution that senators have signed, will you investigate the VFA in any way or call for a hearing? Or at this point, it's irrelevant because the president has spoken?
In fairness to the president, it's very good leverage because he's going to be talking to Trump. And when he talks to Trump, oh, Padre naman, you know, you've been doing this to us. Give us more powers, no? Hindi lang doon sa criminal aspect, yung mga nahuhuling mga Amerikano, but other things like how can you really ratchet up your training, your support for the country.
But will the president ask for that?
I'm sure Trump is aware of that. And
Well,
I'm sure
because in-
before they talk, nag-uusap na yung mga alipores niyan, yung mga DFA may padala na.
But what does the Philippines want? Because during the time of President Duterte, to be fair to him, the U.S. aid has increased. I think it's now at $300 million. If I remember correctly, my figure could
In
be
the
wrong.
last 10 years, it's now about 600,
There.
almost $700 million.
And to be fair, that's during
For the last 10
time.
years, huh?
Yeah. But during the time of President Duterte, there was also a spike in aid. Number two is that Balangiga bells have been returned.
Yeah.
So, in other words, the U.S. does hear him when he has issues. So what do we want? What do we want
Well,
now?
that is up to the president to make a determination. That's what we want to find out in the Senate. You cannot hide that. And I don't believe in an executive session in this particular instance. Because I think people ought to know, are we being put into harm's way? Are our troops going to be in harm's way? Kalimbawa, yung sinabi ko na, ayungin siya, lumaban yung mga tao natin. Babarilin sila. Pag binaril sila, sino tutulong sa atin? Kaya ba natin? Are our jets capable? Yung mga jets ng China, malayo pa tayo, nakikita na tayo, hindi pa natin na sila nakikita. So it's really important for us to really make a determination and to make the decision on the basis of the total security of our people. Protect our people first.
Okay. Now, when it comes to the Mutual Defense Treaty, this is my last question with the VFA. There's always been a question on, is it clear enough in the Mutual Defense Treaty what role the U.S. will play in terms of they will come to our aid? They've made it clear they will not participate in geopolitical issues, jurisdiction with the U.S., Philippines, West Philippine Sea issue. And yet, the Mutual Defense Treaty says they will come to our aid.
In accordance with their constitutional processes. And Pompeo lately has said they will. Yun ang sabi ni Secretary Locsin. But, to my mind, I don't even want to go that far. We had the basis for a long time. Why did we not build up our business so that we can buy our own planes? We lost the time. And now, pinalis natin ang base. Well, sure, I and my volunteers and many other people who helped us were able to bring back Subic and later on Clark. Di ba? We could do it. But we did not build up our armed forces. Actually, in fairness to the President, he has made a lot of improvements in the military. Now, we had jets from Korea, we get boats from Japan, we get even surveillance aircraft, less America, but still, we need all this. So, we really have to make sure that we play our cards right. But above all, we have to make sure that we become a self-respected nation. Self-respecting nation.
Okay, so clearly your statement is you hope the President thinks twice.
I don't hope. I just fear, because if we do something like that, we better do something about it. It's not like, again, I use a Ayungin Shoal, pagka tinamaan yung mga sundalo natin doon, lalaban tayo. And I bet you the Americans are going to help.
Okay.
Because
all right.
In Taiwan, will they help? I was beginning to tell you kanina, in Japan, hindi nakikialam ang Amerikano. Nagbabanggaan yung barko nila sa Senkaku Islands. Binabangga sila. They're playing that game, no? America doesn't intervene. But if they bomb the aircraft, or they bomb Japan, Americans are going to be swift in retaliation.
All right. Now, when it comes to the NGCP, you have threatened that NGCP may lose its franchise.
Yes, I don't make threats.
Okay, go ahead. All right, let me correct then. You've warned.
I made a statement.
Okay.
Because the Constitution clearly provides that in any franchise, 60% of that must be Filipino and 40% can be foreign. But at any time when they seem to be straying away from the franchise, we may revoke, we may amend, we may do that. And all the employees, all the management must be Filipino.
Okay. Now, I've had
in the case of NGCP, they have Chinese.
Okay, let's discuss this. Okay, because I've had the NGCP here maybe a few months back, and they did deny the role of foreigners, especially Chinese specialists or nationals, when it comes to critical situations. And yet, critical posts. During the hearing, they did admit that a Chinese national, Wenbo,
Why did they admit?
Was the chief tech officer of NGCP.
Because I presented them with a copy of a contract that they were signing. And they have signed 41 contracts, all awarded to the Chinese. And you know that? You know what? About 36 of those, or 37 of those, were signed by the Chinese. Only 4 or 5 were signed by Filipinos. So, eto ngayon, we're just watching it. Signed in the presence of the president of the corporation. In the beginning, si Walter Brown signed. Big Boy C signed. And then, after that, wala na. It's all Chinese na. And they keep saying, oh, wala Chinese. Of course not. First, we are, again, security natin ang involved yan. If we do this, we have to be sure na alam natin patakbuhin yan. We have to know that should they leave, we will know how to take care of it.